views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters and editors and writers and filmmakers, photographers, videographers. And our second segment this evening, we're going to talk to an artist, a painter, one of the most well-known and beloved painters in the Bronx. He's going to show us his latest works. But to get started, let's say good evening to Robbie Sequeira, who's new. He is with the Bronx Times. Nice to have you with us, Robbie. We appreciate you being on the Bronx Buzz.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Big fan of the program, so it's great to be here.
There you go. Great. Well, now you are the program here this evening. Let's just talk about it now. A lot of times we have reporters who come to the Bronx from elsewhere, and they bring a little interesting perspective. But you are a Bronx guy who went elsewhere and now are back. Tell me a little bit about the background of where you were, why you did it, and why you came back to the Bronx to work.
Yeah, so I, I've lived in Parkchester most of my life. So I'm 27, which is kind of scary to say.
It's not that scary, dude. Just relax a little bit.
It feels like so I'm just a little kind of anxious about that. But I left to go get my career started as a sports reporter in Minnesota, southern Minnesota, St. James Plain Dealer. Got my career kind of bustling in Iowa. For the Iowa caucuses, chasing around a bunch of politicians in a beat up Buick LeSabre, and then really kind of wrapped up the last maybe year during the pandemic in Georgia for the Gainesville Times. Before this opportunity here at the Bronx Times started, I was really on board with my editor Christian Falcone, who's doing amazing work there. So he really wanted a reporter who had Bronx roots, who also enjoyed kind of the ins and outs of staying up doing watchdog journalism, and that's kind of who I am. So,
is there something that you could tell us that you learned in Minnesota and in Gainesville that you bring here that gives us maybe a little perspective, or even you perspective when you cover the Bronx?
Accountability. When you work in small towns, it's just easier to be held accountable for something that you write. Especially in the small, I worked in a town that was less than 5,000 people. So if you write something and they don't like it, or there's a small fact that might be wrong, which I think all local journalists should experience, you'll have people tell you in the supermarket, you'll be out getting your groceries and go, "Hey, I didn't like that."
Well, wait a minute. You're not going to tell me that Bronx people won't tell you what they think.
I will.
There's just more of them, right?
I think it's easier when someone does it through email or phone rather than someone maybe knowing who you are and seeing you in the supermarket of an aisle. That type of, I think, accountability you can't escape. You can turn off your notifications all you want, but to have people tell you, "Hey, I thought that story was terrible," to your face when you're getting milk, at 9 o'clock in the morning, it kind of does something to your soul.
It does, but you know what? And I can tell you, because I've been doing this a lot longer, it fortifies you because you do what you do and you believe in what you do. And look, we all make mistakes. Our problem is it's out in the public. You make a mistake, everybody knows it. Just talk to me about what drives you, what motivates you to be a journalist. And then I want to get into some of the things that you've been writing for the Bronx Times.
It's funny. I'm a huge extrovert, so people. So I love talking to people. I just love. I really love that my job is talking to someone and asking, what's going on here, and then they tell me, and then I ask another person what's going on here, and it happens to be a story that's affecting a lot of people's lives. One of the main reasons why I got into politics was because political decisions on a local level, city council, board of supervisors, even the electric board or whatever. It affects people's lives every day. It affects their ability to sustain a livelihood. It affects, if the lights are going to come on. And those are issues that I think a lot of people who may not know it affects them knows it affects them, if that makes sense. They don't understand kind of that one-to-one relation of being a constituent and having people in power who are supposed to represent you. And the decisions that they make are either representing you or not representing you. So I really enjoy the stories that I get to tell. And oftentimes it's about people who maybe people wouldn't think twice about, or they may not think that their problems matter in the grand scheme of things. But really, being able to tell stories, especially here in the Bronx, there's a lot of stories that I think are ripe to be told about in a way that maybe haven't historically.
Right.
For instance, of Bronx is a very diverse place with a lot of diverse different lifestyles and livelihoods. And all those stories are interesting. They should be told in a way that you spend time talking to Bronxites.
If I can interrupt you, because I wanted to ask you about some of the things that you have written about. The way I've always viewed it, and obviously I've been doing this here in the Bronx for a lot longer, it's undiscovered territory. We've got 1.4 million people, and there's times when, when I talk to people, nobody knows we're here. It's like they don't know who we are. And yet we invented everything. Everything starts here.
Most things that they listen to come from the Bronx. Most of the things that you eat come from the Bronx. I mean,
exactly.
A lot of New York City comes from the Bronx.
Of course.
And I think the only things that the only things that people hear about in Manhattan or Brooklyn is that the Bronx has a lot of crime. I think that kind of is reductive to the things that happen in the Bronx.
Of course. Let's just get into this was a story that we pulled out that I wanted to get you started on the Bronx Buzz with, was this idea of vendors calling on the city to legalize and decriminalize street vending. And I'll paint the picture for you. You go by the Kingsbridge Armory any day, any Saturday, and there are a zillion vendors all along there, people trying to make some money during a very difficult time. The problem is, of course, they may compete with a clothing store across the street. And so they're saying, hey, we deserve the right to be able to earn a living. Of course, the store owners who are paying a lot of money for landlords for their property, who've kept them up, who've survived the pandemic, are saying, I don't want to lose money for somebody else. Where are we at? What did you see? And where do you think we're going?
It's an interesting situation. I think that all the interests are valid, right? The store owners' interests are valid. They don't want to lose competition to, especially on, like Fordham Road, for example. They don't want to lose all of that foot traffic just to vendors. But then you have vendors who, the majority of vendors, this is from the Street Vending Project, who are a big part for my story. A lot of them are, undocumented workers. A lot of them are veterans. A lot of them are women of color. So people are trying to earn some autonomy financially. So you have a lot of people who really aren't, trying to necessarily take business away from each other, but it happens to be the competitive market in these big, busy places. Where we're kind of at now is that you have a lot of vendors who want to be legitimized for the work that they're doing. And they, a lot of advocates say that they are really the backbone for a lot of what's going on with, New York food, New York fashion, New York accessories, a huge kind of backbone of that market. And then now you also have a lot of people in the storefronters who are saying, hey, you're taking business away from us. But nothing is really being said from the city. Now, there's been a couple of big wins. The city was able to kind of expand over the next decade. 4,000 new vendorships are going to be out, but that still kind of leaves about a huge market of people who aren't.
4,000 doesn't get you anywhere. If you're asking me, I think that the mayor is not going to do anything between now and the time he leaves office. He'll leave it for the next mayor, and then of course the next city council. It will be very interesting because we will have, certainly in the Bronx, many grassroots people who are sympathetic to it, but also trying to build local economies. Not only informal economies, but formal economies. So I think they will have a real input as to what's going on. Is there a conclusion? Is there anything now to say, this is where we're at?
Yeah. So after I wrote that story, I think the weekend, the ensuing weekend, a woman Alonzo, who works for, I think the executive vice president of Fordham Bid.
The Fordham Bid, yeah.
Yeah, she had penned an op-ed to the New York Post. It was a big kind of spread of a lot of vendors on Fordham Road, and then the NYPD broke up a lot of the vendors there. Now, there's a huge issue with that, I think, logistically, since the city council passed a bill in January that said the NYPD would no longer be doing vending enforcement. That goes up to the Board of Health. So there's a lot of there's a huge mishmash. I don't think that there's instructions being told to anybody. From what I gathered in interviews with vendors, with store owners, even with the people who are in charge of business communities in the Bronx, there really isn't a lot of clear language and that may be up for the next mayor to decide.
Yeah, the mayor and the city council. There'll be a small business committee, and they're going to weigh in on it. I think it'll be very interesting because I think we're about to get a whole new city council with a whole new vision of grassroots economy, grassroots ways of life, et cetera, et cetera. The next thing I want to just ask you about, this came up, it's about a specific area, and we're talking about Locust Point. Residents are saying, you know what, the entrance to the, I guess it's, I forget, whatever highway it is that leads to the Frog's Neck, Frog's Neck Bridge, is causing. And now we're getting more cars than ever before. The streets are more crowded, but they want to close that entrance. What do you think? Where are we at with this?
So it's funny. I had talked to.
We got about a minute and a half. So go ahead.
Talked to an MTA spokesperson. They said that it really isn't the traffic issues isn't their jurisdiction. That it's not their problem. That actually would go to the NYPD. So. Kind of another thing about issues is that, a lot of the Locust Point, residents are pointing to this exit that's causing congestion. They say that, some people said that they can't even get off of their own exit, because of the amount of traffic, because the amount of people are trying to merge in. So that's another issue that's going to happen. That's going to have to, go. That's an MTA decision. The MTA does have.
So wait. I was a little confused there. So you're saying the MTA will have a decision? I'm thinking DOT.
So the MTA has to close the bridge. The DOT. Traffic issues. The petition is calling on the TBTA to close the bridge. So for clarification,
close the entrance to the bridge. Let's be clear, we're not closing the front.
So not close the bridge. Yes, excuse me. So the TBTA has jurisdiction over the bridges, over the entrance, tolls, all that movement. Right. The petition calls on for them to close it. The MTA, who I talked to, who the TBTA is under the umbrella of, said that it is, it's really not in their interest to close the exit or entrance anytime soon. Right. And that any of the traffic issues would be for the NYPD to enforce.
I see. So, we're just about out of time. But here's the way I see it: is that right now we have more traffic than ever. So people who know a little bit about the streets and roads, they're not getting on. They're getting even off the highway, or they're trying to reroute around the traffic that slows up going to the bridge, and then they end up crowding a neighborhood, and it suffocates a local community. This is a very. This is one of those that I don't have an answer for. I'm going to let you do the reporting. What's that?
I don't drive either, so for me,
okay.
I don't know the commuter struggle, so it helps to kind of talk to people who stand in standstill traffic to go, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Why you do
well, and the other thing is the communities are getting choked. They're saying this is not our traffic. This is coming from somewhere else. All right. Well, we're going to keep after it. You'll keep after it. And we'll say to Robbie Sequeira from the Bronx Times, congratulations on working for the Bronx Times, on coming back home, on doing the right thing in the BX. And we hope to have you back as you continue to write more great stuff in the Bronx Times.
Anytime. Thanks, guys, so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Great. All right, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, you're going to really enjoy the brand new work from Daniel Hauben. Some of it's a surprise. Danny's one of the most well-known and highly regarded artists in the borough of the Bronx. Don't go away.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I am thrilled because he's my friend, but he really is, as I mentioned earlier, one of the most highly regarded painters and artists in the borough of the Bronx. Daniel Hauben, nice to see you and nice to have you with us on the program.
Thanks. Great to be here, Gary.
Let's just recap a little bit. A good time for artists, one would think, during the pandemic. You're all alone. You can't go anywhere. You may as well stay in the studio and paint. What's it been like for you?
I wouldn't, quite characterize it as a great time for artists, and I can't speak for anyone but myself, but I can say that those of us who have studios and have been able to spend a good deal of time in them during this COVID period are very fortunate. I was doing what I do anyway.
I have to be honest with you, as you might know. I mean, I'm doing the program from my home, and so also I've been able to keep going. Do you find that you've been more prolific? That kind of the aloneness and closing out the world. Although you, of course, do landscapes and
I'm always prolific. I guess my focus has shifted, because I wasn't working outdoors as I want to do, when the weather's nice or whatever. I really was focused on 2 or 3 large paintings that I've, continued to work on all during this period. Happily, earlier this summer, Judy and I were able to get away, and I was able to do some work on location in California.
We're going to show some of that. Let's get right to it. As you know, I'm a big fan of your work of Bronx landscapes. This first one that we're going to look at, this looks to me, we're looking at it on TV. This looks like it's one of those big Daniel Hauben murals of 2 or 3 panels.
Yeah, so it's 2 panels. Began in, I would say, like 2014 on location on Boone Avenue and 173rd Street. And I learned about this because a good friend and fellow artist, Valerie Larco, a wonderful painter, was painting down in that area because she focuses on walls that have graffiti. And so she was in that area. When I got there, I found that what was of interest to me was her painting on, because I never had an opportunity.
Rebecca, can we put that up again? It's too large and too masterful to walk away from.
Yeah, these shots are not the greatest because these are works in progress.
Okay.
This is one of the pieces that I've had lying around the studio that I've been working on.
About how large is it?
So it's about 6 feet across and 2.5 feet high.
Oh, 2.5, because it's not, because I know you've done.
Huge. Yeah,
I'm used to the big, that take up your whole living room paintings.
Well, there's only so many, there's only so much space.
So let's take a look at the next one. We have many paintings and not enough time to go through. This also is just, it's like I asked you a Bronx pictures. You said, well, here's a Bronx sky.
It is, a couple of buildings that are on the upper edge of the hill in Riverdale. And I just did that from my terrace last week. It's a pastel. And, luckily we have this great view, and we've, whenever there's a marvelous sky, I put on my polarizing sunglasses and get to it. So that's
is that more difficult for you to do, to take a sky? I mean, the clouds are moving. So you could say hold it right there, or do you use your imagination, which is relatively fertile?
You have to, because every time you look up, it's changed. And you have to know what kind of atmospheric situation we're in, how fast are the clouds going to be changing, but it's its own challenge. But I love clouds. I always say if I created my own art school, Hauben Institute or whatever, I would have a semester on sky, a semester on trees, a semester on water, each one of whatever subject you're working.
You have introduced,
Focus.
Danny. I want to move on because I want to get to the next pictures. You have introduced the next painting perfectly.
Okay.
Let's take a look.
Ah,
Here we are, a whole new realm of Danny Hauben's work.
well,
The
yeah.
detail is spectacular.
It's new and it's old because this was a piece I called finished in 1982. And then it was hanging in a friend's apartment for 10 years. And I got it back and it was a little damaged. I started working on it and suddenly it became this crazy project. So it's also a large painting, about 6 feet, and used to be called Palm Tree. Now I call it Tropical Big Bang because I see it as like a whole universe.
Your ability with detail is phenomenal. It's always been, even with buildings, and we've seen you do it with Bronx landscape. All right, cue up the next one. Let it rip.
Stretching out. So this is in some ways similar to the palm tree in terms of focusing on this, one area up in a tree. And this was done out in California at a friend's garden. So just directly.
And how much time do you spend looking at and doing the painting, or do you take a photograph of it or a mental photograph?
I'm working. I mean, especially having been in the studio for all these months, I just wanted to be out listening to the birds and smelling the flowers and seeing the light as it changed during the day. So that was done on location. I would say over 3 days, maybe a total of 9 or 10 hours.
Wow. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
So let's see the next picture.
It was cool. So this was the first piece done out on location in Niles, California, just south of Oakland, and my first piece done, live out of my studio in over a year and a half. So that was kind of
is it more or less satisfying to do a natural landscape than it is a Bronx landscape, or are they just different and you view them equally?
So you're saying that the Bronx landscape is not a natural landscape?
Oh, no. Well, that's interesting. The buildings.
I'm gravitating towards nature these days. I spent decades, as you know, on various street corners or, in all kinds of unusual and interesting locations. But I'm, more inclined to be in a quiet place where the air is fresh and the birds are chirping and my mind could be open with nature.
Let's take a look at the next one. Keep it rolling. We want to get them all in. Now, I couldn't believe this. I can't imagine you being that kind of a painter.
Well, there you go. I mean, it's the same rules for whatever your subject is, and that was also done, out in my friend's garden. Those are Icelandic poppies.
Icelandic poppies. There you go. Do you look at it and say, "Oh, let's try this"? Because I don't recall seeing that you had ever done that kind of, stationery.
Because you want to see the Bronx thing. So
I know.
Showing you the Bronx thing, but now for today's program, I wanted to show the work that I've done.
And the range of work, Danny, is fantastic. Let's see the next.
Yeah, the range. So I've done flowers. Oh, this is my brother-in-law's backyard up in Blooming. God, if I get it wrong.
It doesn't matter. What state? It's California?
He's up near Canandaigua, New York.
Oh, so it's upstate New York. There you go. All right, let's move to the next. I want to make sure we get them all in.
Right.
This one absolutely blew me away.
Yeah, this is the one that I'm, really focused on. The name of it is Mnemosyne's Flight. Mnemosyne was the mother of the Muses, and that's her up in the air. And this is a large painting, 9 by 4.5 feet. It's evolved to 5 panels, and it is completely constructed out of my imagination.
Constructed. I was going to ask that because you're usually kind of an eye to canvas painter, but in this case,
you asked what was different about this last COVID period. That it freed me to explore,
Wow.
imagination generated work. And that's, it's the first big piece of its kind that I've done like that.
Wow,
So,
fantastic. Who's going to get that in their apartment? It's going to be their apartment. It's huge.
yeah, really. Well,
All right, let's see. We got 2 pictures left. Let's see
okay.
the next.
So I think these are details from that painting.
Oh.
And so, yeah, they started with this theme of mushrooms. Mushrooms took flight and became jellyfish. And now there's like, people in pods and all kinds of stuff. It's all about like the world, nature generating and diffusing. And
I think it's really, it's really Daniel Hauben admitting that he's a child of the 60s. I think that's what it is.
And the story is that when I was in art school in the 80s and I was doing this kind of work at night, but by day I was doing my little park scenes or window views, my teacher said, "Oh no, you're all over the place. You can't do all this."
Yeah, right.
Like who makes the rules? I'm a Gemini. I'm sorry. I've always called myself a closet surrealist, so maybe I'm.
Well, maybe you're finally getting there. All right, we got 1 painting left. Let's see what the last one is. Oh my goodness, Danny, this work is so wonderful.
This is another detail from that Mnemosyne painting, but I really wanted to share the details because there's a lot going on.
How large is that painting?
Yeah, 9 feet by 4.5 feet high.
All right. So what should I ask? What's next, or we just need to give you a little more time by yourself alone in the room?
Well,
you'll come up with
I'm not sure, but you never know. But I'm still working on all those big pieces. The palm tree, Mnemosyne. I'm still going for it. I don't know where it's going, but
all right. So I'm going to put words in your mouth. Advice to other artists, which you would never do. Take advantage of this time and use it, right? Be as prolific as you can. Let your imagination go. Let your talent go, right? That's what we've done here this evening.
Couldn't have said it better.
Well, that's why they hired me to do the talking. Danny Hauben, all the paintings are for sale, we assume?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. So you go to, what's the website?
Website is danielhauben.com.
Easy enough. Danny, thanks so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. I saw them out there and I said, I got to get them on the show. So you keep working. We'll keep having you on the Bronx Buzz.
Thank you, Gary.
Great.
All the best.
All the best to you too, and to Judy. And guess what? What a wonderful show this evening. We met a new reporter and one of our old-time friends who's a tremendous Bronx artist. And we celebrated the Bronx, as we always do in the Bronx Buzz. Guess what? We'll see you next week. Good night.